You're listening to Music Tectonics.
Hey, it's Dmitri with Music Tectonics at Midem. We are back, ready to attack. Still loving it out here in Cannes, in France. And most of our interviews this week have been with Midemlab startups. But today, or on this episode, I should say, not exactly the case. We have with us here Constantine Roussos, who is the founder and CEO of DotMusic. And by DotMusic, I mean the top-level domain .music. Some of our listeners... Well, first of all, welcome, Constantine.
Thank you for having me, Dmitri.
You know, I met you at Midem, I think, for the first time. Robert Singerman and David Hazen were running around saying, it reminded me of my high school activist days. It was almost like they had a petition. They were like on a mission, and they introduced me to you, and they're like, we need you to sign up. And you were building this incredible network around DotMusic, trying to get all of the music industry, the community, to support this idea of having a different type of top-level domain, and we'll get into that. But I was just remembering, it was probably in this room.
Probably.
We're sitting in the U.S. Pavilion. I know it was A2IM.
A2IM
Was running the show at that point. Yeah, I think, what do you think it was, like 6 years ago?
2012.
Oh, 7 years ago. Well, you've been working at it a long time. So some of our listeners might be aware that there was quite a competition to win the role as registry of the top-level domain .music. For those who heard about that competition, maybe we should catch them up on the news.
Yeah, we've got some great news. So I remember I started this initiative in 2005, so it's been 14 years. So there was a process by which you could apply for a .anything. So it could be .club, .music, .movie, could be anything. And this process was launched in 2012. So prior to that, I was lobbying and trying to get .anythings to be launched to compete with .com. Why have a .edu and a .gov and a .org? Why not .music? Why not .anything? So 2012 was the date that you could apply, and we applied as a community applicant. And by community, we mean you need support letters, hence why we were asking you to sign. Mm-hmm. You need support letters by the community that's associated with that word. So in this case, it was .music, so it's the music community. And basically the process is, if you meet certain criteria that the internet regulator put together, you win .music. And obviously it's very hard to meet that criteria, and you need support from the majority of the community.
So just to be clear for our listeners who aren't familiar with the top-level domains and how this works, when you're talking about win.music, there's something called a registry, and that's the organization that actually manages the database of everything that ends up as a domain under .music. And then there are the registrars, so people might have heard of like a GoDaddy, all those different companies that sell the domains, those are registrars. And so the registry is actually like the wholesaler?
Yeah, so the simplest way to describe it is .com, for example, is the registry for .com. It's called VeriSign, so they are the manufacturer. Uh-huh. So registrants, which is people that want to register their .com, do not go to VeriSign. Most people don't even know who they are, and they go to GoDaddy, who is called a registrar, in other words, a retailer, to register their .coms. And what happens is .com has their wholesale price. Let's say it's like, I don't know what it is, $8 or somewhere close to that. And basically a GoDaddy could sell the domain for $12. They have to pay VeriSign the wholesale price, and they keep $4. So that's
just so we understood that when we're talking about the fact that you're now the CEO of .music, you're the registry, and then all those resellers will sell that, and then everybody who's listening can get a .music domain through those resellers.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So were you going to say anything else about that community application? I mean, that's kind of an interesting piece of it, was that typically what happens is these registries go to auction, And since you did this community application, you had to get the support of the entire music community. I would think of it as industry, but the terminology that I can use, I guess, is community.
So the terminology is community. And one of the chief reasons, there's two major reasons why you would want to go and as a community. The first reason is you set the policies that serve that community. In other words, for music, it could be intellectual property protection, protecting people's, artists' names so no one else takes their name. And also, the prediction was that with DotMusic, you would have competition by big players. In DotMusic's case, it was Amazon, Google, $2 trillion companies, and obviously you cannot outbid Google or Amazon in an auction. You wouldn't think you could.
Yeah.
They could probably buy the entire music industry if they wanted. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So paint a picture of why you think DotMusic is important for the music industry.
I think it's critically important because for the first time in history, it's a clean slate for artists, for example, to claim their names. I'll give you some examples. Drake, for example, his official website is drakeofficial.com. Kiss is kissband.com. The list goes on and on. queenonline.com. And for them to get their domains, they would have to pay a lot of money to get these generic terms like Queen. And obviously, what we wanted to do is ensure that first the famous names are reserved for those artists, so the general public would know Queen by Queen. So if you want to go visit Queen's website, you wouldn't have to go to Google to figure out, what their official website is. You would just go in direct navigation in Queen.music, Prince.music, directly in the URL bar at the top.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a pretty amazing thing, because most people would go on Google or Bing and search for an artist, and you wouldn't know what the official website is. You would never know, because there's no authenticated, verified domains for musicians in the music industry, even labels or whatnot. So that's the first time, and it's important to organize the music community industry in a consistent manner, so people can intuitively go to the www and put in their favorite band, and if it's a famous band, you would get to the famous band.
So besides .gov and .edu, has any other top-level domain been administered with rules about verification to create this kind of situation, what you're trying to do here with .music, where it's like it is official? I mean, like, obviously, if you go to nyu.edu, it's New York University. If you go to newyork.gov, it's probably the state government in New York, things like that.
Yes. So there was .bank. So .bank was another community
Registry.
initiative. So it was a community initiative with rules. So you can, first, you have to get verified. It's a manual process. It's about $1,000, $900 to register a .bank.
So I can't register freemoney.bank?
No chance.
Darn,
no chance. You would fail the criteria.
No, so there are criteria there. So there's a precedent not just for .gov and .edu. And has the banking industry embraced it?
Yeah, actually they're doing pretty well. A few thousand registrations, which is, .edu is about 4,000 to 5,000 registrations, and it's considered extremely successful.
Right.
And it is.
Because all schools have it.
Yeah, and the good thing about .edu is only accredited institutions, post-secondary institutions in the United States can register it. It's only limited to the United States of America. So what's beautiful with .music, it's a truly global effort.
How do .music domains relate to protecting the rights of music creators and rights holders? Obviously, you've got the name and attribution in that sense, and I'm interested in this idea that you're pulling it out of the Google search engine, which is powered by advertising, and putting it in the URL. But that cleans up a little bit there in terms of an index for music in a way. But there's been a lot of other situations online where there's other ways in which intellectual property has been monetized without payment, and or monetized without, or not monetized, but given away without payment, so forth. Is there a relationship with .music?
Yes, I have a funny example. So April 12th, I still remember this vividly, 2019. So we found out we won .music April 11th, 2019. And I got an email the next day, and the heading was Elton John .rocks. And it was a person trying to sell me Elton John .rocks. And I'm thinking to myself, cyber squatting, who's protecting Elton John, you know? And it was quite fascinating. And we started to do pre-registrations in the last few months. And we found out, and the pre-registrations, again, it's not, no commitments and interestless, you don't pay for it. And we found out that 10% of the pre-registrations were people trying to register famous artist names. So this is a big issue, and there's been a lot of cases with Bruce Springsteen, Lady Gaga, Van Halen, where not only bad actors, but some fans would try to register the artist's name, and they would prevail in arbitration, and the artist wouldn't be able to get their name because the fan was using it in good faith. So in order for the artist to get their name back, they would have to show bad faith. So in the case of protecting the music creators, we created a globally protected music marks list for famous names in the music community. In other words, Elton John would be on that list, and all these famous brands, Universal .music, and basically no one could register these names unless they were they were representatives or Elton John, pretty much. So you had to have the rights to have that name. And of course, in the music industry, it's a bit complicated because you don't know who has the rights to the website, to the domain name, because it's based on the agreement that you have with the label or the public, or the agent or the manager, or within the bands, it could be a case where like Guns N' Roses is Axl Rose, it's not Slash, right? So there's, key members of the band that may have the domain name. So basically, the two issues were first the name. So famous brands who are, the general public know who they are will get their names. And secondly, copyright. So on top level domains, there's no domain extension out there that enforces copyrights. So in the case of .music, we'll be the first that protects mass piracy. For example, you would never see a Pirate Bay .music. It wouldn't exist. Obviously, if it's one or two licensing issues, that's too small for us to be looking at, but we're looking at mass piracy and real bad actors. So we're very, very excited with all of that. And more importantly, we will have dispute resolution mechanisms in the cases where there's let's say there's a band called Bliss or Angel, and there's about, for Angel, I think there's like 30 bands called Angel globally, and if you go on Spotify and Bliss, there's like 7 bands called Bliss. So in those kind of cases, if someone claims the domain name, and maybe there's a problem, they can invoke a dispute resolution for that to be done without going to court. So we've got dispute resolutions with all kinds of things with .music. So that way it's a fair process, and people can be heard if there's an issue. And we believe in fairness of the allocation of the names.
Who will be able to register for a .music domain? Is it just bands or
no? So
labels?
you would have a nexus. Anyone that has a nexus with music can register. Obviously, we expect most of the registrants to be artists and musicians and bands, but of course, industry professionals can register. Companies can register. Anyone in relation to music can register. However, if you're a pet store, you cannot register your .music because it's unrelated to the subject matter. So we call it content and use policies. In other words, it has to relate to music somehow, and the usage has to be legal, and everything has to be licensed, and you have to agree to those terms and conditions when you register your .music.
Gotcha. So if I already have a music company or artist name with a .com or some other relevant domain suffix, or maybe not relevant, but it's where everybody goes, does it matter whether I get a .music domain? Like, would you want people who have a .com to also get a .music, or and also what's the benefit of that if I'm already like really comfortable with the fact that everyone knows I'm a .com.
Right. So we're introducing 3 new innovations for .music that don't exist in .com. The first one is the verification component. So basically, think of Instagram verified or Twitter verified to get that tick. So basically, you register your domain, and then you'll have a time period, maybe 45 days, for you to verify through your ID or a passport or whatnot, and you become verified. So that's absolutely brilliant because people can trust it. Oh, it's the actual artist. If it's a .music site, it's legal, it's verified, and we know that the money is going to flow to the music community, which is critical. So the verification is the first part. It's trust. The second part, which is very, very exciting, is the built-in security, HTTPS, which will be mandatory for all .music domains. So the first guys that did it were .bank, which you mentioned earlier. Of course, it has to be as secure as possible. No, there'll be less hackers, less problems. So they launched it, and then the big boom happened, which was Google launched their .app and .dev, and they included this built-in security, and they introduced a bunch of innovations around it. And more importantly, with this specific innovation, they were giving search engine boosts for those that were using it. So .app gets a search engine boost automatically just by this built-in security that the domain name will have that .com doesn't have. So when it comes to search engine optimization and ranking, it's all about trust. Is it the trusted result? Is it the authoritative result? Is it is it verified? Of course it is. And if you can see Wikipedia or .edu, those are most trusted. They're authority, and they have a lot of links linking to them, which gives them a lot of authority. So the built-in security will come with .music.
So that's the second. That's the second feature.
That's the second feature. It's a huge feature. And the third feature, which is very exciting, is called RDAP. So when you register a domain under Whois, you basically tell the registrar and ICANN, the regulator, who is the registrant. So who registered it, who owns the domain, pretty much. What your address is, your email, your phone number. So it's basically a database of the ownership of that record of the domain, and that's called Whois. And now in Europe there's the GDPR, which is a privacy thing. If you check some of the Whois, you wouldn't find. In the past, you could find who registered what and their address, and it was public on the internet. But now that has changed. However, what was introduced, and one company did this, was .art, which was they introduced records for specific pieces. So instead of it being Leonardo da Vinci.art, it would be Mona Lisa.art. So basically, underneath the registration of who owned Mona Lisa.art, there would be these things called art records. So it's additional fields. For example, who is the artist? Who's the painter? When was it painted? What's the dimensions? So all these fields would be added that are very exciting. This is metadata, pretty much. And this metadata is inputted by the person that registers the domain name or the art piece. So with .music, I'll give an example. Let's say U2 registers U2.music. They, whoever registers it, I'm sure the band, it may be Bono, whoever owns the rights to the website. And then at the bottom of the U2.music, there'll be something like a music record, which will say band members, Bono, The Edge. And then they would say underneath would be record label, Island Records or whoever is the record label. So with this stuff would be accurate metadata, which could be used for a bunch of stuff. So we're really excited about that little innovation, which is just a bunch of fields and records that you could attach to your Whois for your domain name.
Interesting.
And this could impact perhaps, let's say, voice activation, or if it's accurate data, it's always a case of garbage in, garbage out. And to have a domain name, the rules are with ICANN that your your registrant information and your admin and your technical has to be accurate 100%, or you lose your domain name. And that's how I got excited with .music, and because it's all about, for example, getting paid, right? You need to know the name, address, where you pay them, et cetera, and I thought that would be great for artists to who owns the domain name, and then under that attach more metadata. It could be the future, it could be the copyright. You attach your songs and kind of an IMDb for music per se.
Yeah.
So that's an exciting innovation, and we're talking to the music industry on how those records, those RDAP records, could be used, or what fields we should use, and we believe all of those three innovations put together definitely give a big advantage over .com. But hey, if you have a .com, you could either have your .com and your .music have a different strategy, or it's going to be up to the artist to decide what they want to do. But the big question is, should I move the .music to the .com? We would say, why would you waste all that other stuff that we're bringing in the innovation? Why don't you have two websites, develop a different strategy, or you could migrate all your stuff from .com to .music, keep your .com and do some, permanent URLs where your previous, because you don't want to lose your search ranking for your .com if you developed a lot of links going to it, and we'll build some best practices when this is launched on how you can optimize your .music to be found in the search results, and also to be helpful in how you can monetize better.
Cool. So this is cool to come full circle, having seen you in action, lobbying and gathering community at Midem. Now we're at Midem, and you're announcing that you now won the community competition, which I know was, if anyone who followed news, it was a long uphill battle. There was a bit of controversy along the way, just because there were a lot of people vying for it. Like you said, the large tech companies were ready to drop some money on it as well. And now, this is interesting to hear about these innovations, not just for music, but for top-level domains across the board. But of course, the next question is, when will .music roll out, and how can people start registering domain names?
Right. So right now, we're very focused on the language part. In other words, the rules, the legal part, such as the dispute resolution. If there's disputes between two artists with the same name, for example, and basically what are the policies for registration, content and use, and we're working on that. And once that's complete, everyone's going to know exactly what the rules are and the policies with registering a .music, and also who are going to be the dispute resolution providers, whether it's WIPO or the arbitration forum. And right after that is done, we contract with ICANN, and all those policies will be attached to the registry agreement with ICANN, the regulator. And after that, we begin the launch phase. And it'll be sometime in 2020, I'm predicting, probably Q2 or Q3. Currently, we are collecting pre-registrations. You can go to www.music.us. That site will change very soon to a .music site.
Music.music?
Music.music, that's a great question. It could be my.music. Music.music sounds pretty cool. I would love that. So 2020, if you guys are interested, you can go to www.music.us, and there's a pre-registration there. It's free. It's just an interest list pretty much, and we will contact you once we get more information on .music. And of course, we'll be assuming a lot of the registrars like GoDaddy or whatnot will be contacting.
I feel like some of them have .music on them already.
The pre-registrations, it's just an interest list.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one has .music.
But the registrars are also collecting that?
They're collecting, yeah, because they want to know who wants to register .music so they can contact you when it's available.
Yeah, I guess they're jumping on it. They're building their funnel.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. Well, awesome. Constantine, so cool to have this full circle story of having seen you here and come back around and actually fought the battle and won for the music industry. In full disclosure, we've done some work together. I have a PR firm called Rock, Paper, Scissors, and we've done some work together. So I've watched the story build. You guys convinced me so that we could align, and so it's been great to help amplify that story as well. And so thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining me on the Music Tectonics podcast. Please hit subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And also think about coming out to the Music Tectonics conference, which is October 28th and 29th in Los Angeles. We'll be bringing you more from Music Tectonics at Midem as well, so stay tuned for more.
You're listening to Music Tectonics.